Hi, it's Lydia. I'm here with the wonderful Esther, who is our researcher on Sweet Legacies. Esther, do you want to introduce yourself and also please tell us, what is a researcher?
Hello, Lydia. It's lovely to be here on the podcast today. So yes, my name is Esther and I am the researcher for the Sweet Legacies project. So it's my job to sort of look in the archives, pull out interesting information and stories. So we've been working with lots of wonderful, wonderful groups. And it's been so fabulous to hear all the things they're interested in learning more about in York's history and all the shared heritage that we have. So my role has been to go into the archive and find those stories, see what ideas we want to share, to sort of help inspire their creative works. And it's just been so great to see what they've been up to. And I've got to assist in some of the facilitation as well, which has been such a joy.
We just wondered, for any aspiring researchers, could you maybe tell us how you got into it and any tips for people looking to get into the world of research?
Oh, I love this. So I've taken quite a traditional route. I suppose when you hear the word researcher and archives, you probably think historian, and that is the route I've taken. So I'm currently completing my PhD in performance and contemporary history. So that's how I got into it. So I'm really used to using archival sources and words like that. Sometimes they are dusty cupboards full of stuff. I think archives and research sound really scary words potentially, but actually it's just about being nosy. And I'm really passionate about anybody being able to go and do research and look up things that are interesting to them. And the Roundtree's history is something that belongs to the whole city of York. So it's really lovely for me to be able to go into the archives and bring those stories out. But actually, the archives, and by that I mean usually the Borthwick Archive at the University of York, is actually anybody can arrange to go visit and look at the things in there. So I would just encourage people, if they're nosy, drop them an email, give them a phone call. They're really lovely and friendly, happy people who love to see people getting involved and being nosy. So that's what I would say. That's my number one tip, is just be nosy, because that's basically what I am. And now I've been able to make a job out of it. So go and follow those interests.
Amazing. Please, can you tell us what your sort of favourite moments of Sweet Legacies have been? Also any like uncovered history that you found, any of your favourite things you discovered about the Roundtrees?
Okay. There've been so many highlights on Sweet Legacy, so that's a really, really hard question. I think one of them for me that stands out is the Wings radio play. I really enjoyed going and sharing some ideas with the ladies in that group about history that they might find interesting around the World Wars and Roundtrees during that time period. But also just the people who worked at Roundtrees during that period as well. We're not all about the big names, but the people who actually make these big names famous, and were doing all the hard work in the factory as well. And it was a really lovely session, just sharing that information, and it really felt like they were sort of like really interested and listened, which was really cool. But what was even better was actually then being able to see the script and being like, wow, this is really, really cool, seeing how they've been really inspired by this history and they've really been able to take ownership of it. And that was just really wonderful, because that's the sort of thing Sweet Legacies is about, I think. It's about enabling people to be interested and create and be inspired by the history that we all share, and that we're all the inheritors of, and thinking about, well, what we're going to do next in the future. What's our future York community? So I think that was a really wonderful session. But I mean, I've also just really enjoyed being a facilitator as well. So actually just getting to be in sessions, helping to run things. I've really loved being able to use dancey skills as well with the performance side of my life and dance teaching. That's been really, really wonderful, seeing people get active and creative and dancey, especially young people. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Something that I've learnt, I mean, I've got quite a few things that I've learned and I've come across. I think my number one fact and thing that I typically get most excited about is the pineapple plant that I came across. Pete, he's called Pete, the pineapple plant, and he comes with me whenever I do a community engagement thing, a Sweet Legacies event. He's great. And this is because the Roundtrees had a tropical plant house in the city and they grew a pineapple. And when I was reading the Cocoa Workers magazines, so the Roundtree factory had staff magazines throughout the 20th century, I found a picture of a pineapple plant that they had grown. at Rowntree's. And I just thought that was so novel for something like the 1910s or 1920s. It was in one of the earlier magazines. I thought that's really cool. This is what a pineapple plant looks like. This is how they grow. And B, Rowntree's did it in York at a time we might not associate with like tropical things and high tech. So I just thought that was really fun.
Amazing. Why do you think the link between performance and heritage is important?
Ooh, I love this. I think there's something for me about being really active in heritage, and I think being performance-based and being creative really helps to make that link. I think there's sometimes this idea that history is dead and it's just dusty old things in a cupboard, or it's just museum artifacts sat on a shelf that nobody cares about. But actually, those things are, not dusty. Archives are usually very well cared for with strict standards, but they are these fragments and these surviving things that we have left of people who were just like us. They might be all that we can sort of see, but they provide lenses into that world. So they're really interesting. But I think what performance then brings to that sense of heritage is it kind of helps to bring them alive. Because we can't recreate the past, and that's not what we're doing. But actually, I think bringing a sense of life and really pulling out all of the relevance and the interesting things about it, and reminding ourselves that actually, like, these were people and these were events and things that were real, and people lived their lives just like we live our lives today. So I think that, for me, that's something that performance really brings to it. And I love it when performance and heritage and history all come together in a glorious mix. And it makes me think about what sort of things people would perform or get creative with about our current age as well. Because we're making our own history right now. In like 50 years' time, what will people be inspired by that we're doing now? Smarties. Do you know what they used to be called? Chocolate beans. And they were called chocolate beans until 1937, where we started to get the term Smarties coming in. Do you know the history of how they invented Smarties?
No.
Would you like to know?
Yes, please.
This is something fun I came across. And it's also a little bit horrible histories-esque. So,
is there a rat involved?
There are rabbits.
A song?
I wish. Essentially, Rowntree's are already making little bits of chocolate called cocoa nibs. And funnily enough, that becomes the name of like one of the youth groups throughout the 20th century, and with the Rowntree factory workers, the cocoa nibs. But chocolate nibs had been in production for quite a long time. And in the late Victorian period, we get a French confectioner coming over to work for Rowntree's, and he brings across the idea of sugar coating. That had been around for quite a while, for actually since the 18th century and before. You'd had this idea of sugar coated things, but in France they were sort of, I think the translation would be rabbit droppings was what they were called, and I just think it's really funny that you have this idea of little bits of chocolate, let's cover them in sugar. They've got this really funny history involving rabbit droppings as a name. And then come 1937, let's brand them as Smarties. Did you know that Aero and Kit Kat are now about 90 years old?
Wow, happy birthday, nearly 100. Hopefully
I know.
We'll get a letter in 10 years' time.
Yeah, they were both launched in 1935. I think it's really funny when you hear things like that, because we associate things like Aero and Kit Kat as being really modern, and actually they're really not that new. They're almost a century old.
What about the Chunky?
I don't know about the Chunky.
Interesting. That feels like a modern invention.
It does, doesn't it?
And definitely the flavours, they're new, aren't they? That's exciting.
Yes, and actually that's one of my other facts. So in Japan, Japan has a huge market for Kit Kats, and they have made over 300 flavours for the Japanese market. Options include green tea, soy sauce, and cherry blossom. Speaking of Kit Kats, this is another one of my favourite facts, which I will actually give to a friend of mine who did some food history research of her own a few years ago before moving to the other side of the world. We don't actually know how the Kit Kat was made. The reason for this is because inside a Kit Kat is Kit Kat. So between the wafer layers in a Kit Kat is mashed up Kit Kat. So how do you make a Kit Kat before you've made Kit Kats?
Yeah, was it like the chicken or the egg? What came
I know.
first, the Kit Kat or the wafer?
Thinking a little bit more about some of the history of Rowntree's, and another very famous product, fruit pastels are considered the best-selling Rowntree product of all time. They were introduced in 1881.
Wow, that is pretty old, isn't it?
Yeah, so another really long-standing product.
Interesting. And they're vegan now.
Marvellous, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me something.
You're welcome. Any listeners out there that are vegans, you can now have fruit pastels.
I love that. So the first Rowntree shop was at 28 Pavement in York. So this is where Pizza Hut now stands, opposite Marks and Spencer's, if you know it. Now, I will give, however, the caveat that the building you see there today was built in the 1870s. That means it's not actually the same building that Joseph Rowntree Sr. bought in 1822.
Oh.
But that is the site of it.
That does feel like we should all take a team trip to Pizza Hut to investigate that.
And then get the ice cream machine with the Smarties on top?
Yes, perfect.
Rowntree's obviously has had a massive impact on confectionery in the past and today. But one thing I was really surprised to come across was that there was potential for them to merge with Cadbury's and Fry's in 1918. So we've all heard of Cadbury's, we've probably heard of Fry's as well, although that has not necessarily grown to quite the same height as a company today. The two companies, Rowntree's and Cadbury's, were major competitors. But they were also familiar with one another, and this is because they were both Quaker. So as much as they were sort of business rivals, they really weren't very far apart. And actually, some of them trained together in York as confectioners. So in Joseph Rowntree Sr.'s shop that he bought in 1822, we had Joseph Rowntree Jr. training alongside George Cadbury. So that's quite fun. So that is Seabohm Rowntree's dad training with George Cadbury.
I'm seeing it now as a sort of musical rap battle.
Is it the new Hamilton?
I think it could be.
Little secret fact that isn't actually so secret anymore, that I did come across as well. During World War II, the gum department at Rowntree's became a secret fuse factory. And this was under the guise of County Industries.
Interesting. Didn't you find a picture?
Yeah, there are a couple of pictures actually, which we cannot quite share with you through the medium of podcast. But
I was just thinking it was interesting that there was pictures of the secret.
There were. Yeah. And so it's a sort of thing of it was secret, but it kind of wasn't secret. People knew. Well, the women typically working in munitions factories across the country were known as canaries because of some of the chemicals and the way that it affected your appearance and your clothing and turning yellow and things. But it is also known to be quite dangerous work. So I did come across one story in my research about a young girl who was asked to work in that department once it transitioned to making fuses. But she was so afraid of the potential for explosions that she was actually transferred to a completely different place on the railway line doing the signal box. It's all right, though, it turned out, because she was too far away from York, being down the line in Church Fenton, to regularly commute, so she had to stay locally. And what a shame that she ended up meeting her future husband at the local RAF base while she was there. So, the pros and cons of fuse factory work. Rowntree's have a big reputation for marketing, and in the marketing world, they were really innovative with it. And they made the first ever talking, moving picture advertisement in 1929. So this is almost 100 years ago. And this would have been shown in cinemas. So obviously we didn't have television sets yet. It was about 6 minutes long. And this actually was it was the same year that Disney made the famous Steamboat Willie animated picture. This was only 1 year after talking pictures had been invented at all. And Rowntree's have made the first advertisement version. The advert featured Mr. York, who was the Rowntree's mascot at the time, and he throws a bar of chocolate off the page and into the hands of one of the real-life videographers or actors at the end. So it's really clever for almost 100 years ago. Just imagine how amazed cinema audiences might have been at the time. Experts had a bit of a task to restore the footage, and this is because it's on nitrate film, and that makes it an explosion risk. So they had to take bomb safety steps when they were restoring the film, just in case.
That's all for today. Tune in to the next episode to find out what we've been up to.